Do you want to start fall vegetables and attract butterflies to your garden at the same time? Stay tuned. Hey guys, I am here today with a package that has arrived from my friends over at Botanical Interests, and they have sent me a fabulous collection of different seeds that you can start this fall in your garden so that you can attract pollinators, including butterflies, next year. So what I love about this company is not only do they have beautiful packaging, but it's quite informative. They actually send you a guide of what you need to do to be successful with your seed starting. And fall is the perfect time of year to actually start many of these seeds in your garden. The first one they've sent that I'm really excited about is these really pretty sweet peas. Isn't that beautiful? And I just happened to have poured myself a cup of tea. And one of the tricks that I've learned when I see this wording on the packaging, which says that you need to soak your seeds for 12 to 24 hours, is to use your tea leaves. That's exactly what I'm doing here. I've got this little bowl of water and I'm using my leftover tea leaves, and I've been soaking those in this water, and now I'm gonna add my seeds. I'm gonna pour these into my little bowl, and for the next 12 hours, they're gonna sit just like this, and tomorrow we will be putting them into the garden. Now, many of these seeds require something called cold stratification. What that means is they need that cold snap this winter to get growing. And that's what I'm finding about a lot of the seeds they've sent me, is they actually say you should be planting them in some cases up to 4 weeks ahead of time before your first frost. If you look on the link below or contact your extension service, you'll see when your first frost is expected. So one of the things that they've sent me that I'm super excited about is a cover crop that I've never grown before called hairy vetch. In this particular case, it says winter hardy in zones 4 and warmer, and it will start growing again next spring. So it's gonna put its roots down this winter and get growing. So while top growth may be slow, it acts as a blanket for your soil. That's exactly what we want, preventing erosion from wind or water, and the deep roots are still growing, feeding the soil organisms and improving the soil structure and water retention. So this is going in my orchard. I'm going to feed the soil in the orchard. So I have a tiny orchard in my thoughtful garden, and those plants did great this year. We got wonderful peaches and we got Asian pears, at least the ones that my groundhog saved for me. He thought they were extremely delicious. I can say that this is a great choice for you that are in drought zones right now. It is drought tolerant and it resists temporary flooding. So if we get any of these crazy storms like we did last fall and your property were to flood, it's probably gonna be just fine. So I'm looking forward to growing this hairy vetch and making my soil even better. Once that green mulch comes up and it blooms, I'll just chop it down and we can chop and drop it or add it to the mulch pile. So super excited about that. One of my absolute favorites when you are growing for bees as well as for yourself is to put borage into your vegetable garden. This is a trick I've done again and again. It's deer resistant. It's a beautiful blue color that the pollinators find absolutely irresistible, but it also tastes great. If you like the taste of cucumber, this is a really refreshing flower you can put into your drink. And once it's in, it will usually self-seed again and again. And it's just bloomed its head off this summer. But in this particular case, when to sow outside 1 to 2 weeks before your average last frost. So I'm gonna wait on this one, but probably put this in middle of September. For here, our typical first frost is usually around the second week of October. Now, another one that we got was this awesome flower mix called Bring Home the Butterflies. What I will say about Botanical Interests is not only are they aligned with local growers, so they buy non-GMO heirloom seeds, In many cases, these growers are growing in your backyard, which is really fantastic for you because it's more nutritious for your pollinators and it's specifically adapted for your soil and climate conditions. So they will send you the flower mix that's appropriate for your ecotype. Now, what ecotype are you in? The eco zones are listed on the link below from the National Wildlife Federation, and they will tell you the most beneficial seeds you can grow for your pollinators. In many cases, some of those are going to include your native milkweeds. Milkweed is the only plant that is for our monarch butterflies. Now, there are other butterflies that also use this plant, as well as pollinators will use the flower. But if you want more monarchs in your life, you definitely want to be growing native milkweeds. Now, many native milkweeds in my zone specifically require what's called cold stratification, which means it needs the cold of winter to freeze and thaw that seed. And that's really, really important. The other thing you want to know is how deep does it need to be. In this particular case, it says that you're going to want to put it no deeper than 1/4 of an inch. That's really, really, really shallow. Now, I will say that I find in my area that the butterflies really love the swamp milkweed over the common milkweed, but the data says you need 2. And that's what I have here. I have 2 different milkweeds that will be appropriate for my area and that will bring in the butterflies. And I will tell you, the first season I grew a garden for butterflies, I only had 2 stalks of milkweed, and it's not enough. They can decimate a plant in no time. So you definitely want more strands. What I will also say is the taproot of the common milkweed is very challenging to move. So once you put it where it goes, it shouldn't probably be moved. It's very hard to get it up. So that's another thing that you might want to know. Another good choice would be butterfly weed for this area. And interestingly, in my area, they prefer those first 2 and the butterfly weed. But at my garden that I've been working on with a Girl Scout, we just have the butterfly weed in that garden, and they have gone gaga over it. I saw at least 5 caterpillars just on one plant. Now, this summer I've done a lot of work in pollinator gardens, and one of their absolute favorites is purple coneflower. They cannot get enough of this flower, and this one's super important too for fueling those migratory birds that are in your yard, as well as your birds that are going to overwinter where you live. This should be left standing this time of year, but this is a prolific reseeder. So once you've put it in, you're probably going to have lots to share with your friends or maybe to use in other areas. But I highly recommend this plant. Echinacea has also been known to help with health issues. You'll need to do the research on that, but it has a long history of being something that is good for you too. Another fan favorite of my pollinator station is this wild bergamot. Now, wild bergamot has been used for centuries to use in food. It's really delicious if you chop it up, kind of like an oregano if you like that. This is a lovely lavender color, and I find that my hummingbird and hummingbird moths really love this one. Now, I will say that wild bergamot has a tendency to get a little bit of powdery mildew. So what I do to keep it from getting too tall in my garden and to also cut down on powdery mildew is to chop it. Yep, we're talking about the Chelsea chop. You're gonna wanna cut it in half on Memorial Day and then by another third, July 4th. In my area, the majority of my butterflies come in July and August, and what I find is that it blooms at the right time if you will chop it. Not every bergamot does that, so I want to be very specific that this is for our native wild bergamot. One other mix I really love is this Precious Pollinators mix. Now, isn't this just going to be lovely to have lots and lots of colors and flowers? I will tell you, the pollinators will go crazy over this. So I'm going to plant this in conjunction with the hairy vetch that they sent me. I want more flowers in my fruit orchard. Now, why would I want that? Well, according to the data, if you can get more pollinators in your orchard, you can grow more food. It also means that it's going to host the good guys that eat the bad guys, like our dragonflies who love to munch on mosquitoes. This is going to help feed them too, and that's going to mean less pest pressure for your orchards. I highly recommend planting for your pollinators so you can have less pest pressure and no need to treat your fruit orchards with chemicals. Looking at the data coming out of Pennsylvania, these pollinators are responsible for almost $1 billion in apple crops. So it's really important that you're feeding pollinators if you want to feed yourself. So I hope that this has been really helpful. I am super excited to get these growing, and I think that you are absolutely going to love these beautiful seeds from Botanical Interests. And if you'll look in the comments area, I'm going to be able to give you a special code that will help this channel grow. So support the channel by buying from Botanical Interests on the link below. Garden thoughtfully and take care.